son. Where'd you find this?
So you know somebody doesn't respect you. They listen to reply, not to be understood. They cut you off. They minimize what actually matters to you. They laugh at your boundaries, and then they call you sensitive when you try to hold the line. They show up late, they cancel last minute, forget the things you've told them, because in their world, your time, your energy, even your voice aren't a priority. They're just an option. You see, there are two kinds of people. Those who adjust when they realize they've actually hurt you, and those who expect you to adjust so they don't have to change. You don't need to be disrespected loudly to be disrespected deeply. Sometimes you'll see it. It's just in their tone, in their patterns, in the silence after you're known. Respect isn't what they say when they're watching. It's how they act when they think you'll tolerate it.
The flow insane, take my spot, so the range. Shoot my shot with perfect aim. Third degree, that perfect flame. Ain't no sleep, that's the game. Oh, so southern, that's the slang. When they see me, that's the main. Chasing checks and fly like planes. Big old stick, I bought a cane. Flick my wrist and bought the ring. I'm so boss, we're not the same. Paid the cost and kept the change. Now I'm walking Hall of Fame. And I reside in the cloud. Grand wishes with these bitches. Taking pictures with the crowd, and I'm out.
What up, what up, what up, what up? Happy Monday. Peace, blessings, glory, praise, and honor to the Most High. I hope all is well with each and every single one of you. It's good to be back. I hope all is well. I hope you enjoyed your weekend. I hope the day has been well with you. Max, I see you, bro. I got you. I understand completely. Shout out to my poets, writers, content creators, all the in-betweens. You know, I give my flowers when flowers are due. You see the title. This is an interesting one. Shout out to Sydney for bringing this one up to my attention. I thought it would be a good one to discuss this evening to kick the week off. So, I believe she's with family right now. I got Rob, I got Max in the building. Max is handling some business. I'm gonna pull Rob up. Once everything is situated, we'll get the ball rolling. Do me a solid, like, share, repost. Let the people know that we are on. All right. Let's see. Rob, what up? What up? What up?
Yeah. Happy Monday.
What's the word? How's your weekend?
Very rough. It's a long story, but we're going to keep it going.
There she is. Hey, look, as soon as I heard rough, you ain't had to say nothing else. I already know what that means, bro. Hold on, let me bring Max and Sid up here. Let me get this right. Boom, bada bing, bada boom. How do I want to do this? Hold up.
You don't know how to do this. How long you been doing this for? Yeah, you know how to do this. The nerve of you.
I know, right? I know, right?
Computers.
What's going on?
What's up? What's up? What's up?
How are you doing?
Good,
I heard
man.
okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I want to make sure my Bluetooth ain't crapping out. How's everyone doing on this Memorial Day?
Hey, we here. You know, it's been a little rainy. You know, I'm enjoying it. Not big on the heat myself personally, but it's a vibe. How about you?
I'm doing pretty good today. I'm on the last hour doing DoorDash, which is ironically the length of this podcast tonight. So this should be interesting. I was just putting that warning in because I'm like, well, I could talk from my car. I just don't know if I'm going to end up in the dead zone. Hopefully not. Because where I live upstate near Orange County, and it gets, depending on where you drive, the signal likes to disappear on you. So, Lord have mercy, is all I can say.
You in New Jersey?
No, I'm in upstate New York. I'm in Orange County, New York. I'm in Monroe, actually, right now.
Ooh.
Or something like that. So I don't know on my way there if the signal's going to be good, going to be in my favor or not. Robert, we meet again.
Drive safe.
Hey, you.
Definitely do that.
Yeah.
I got a clip for y'all. It's not exactly the one that you sent me, but it does touch on it. So I'm gonna let it play out, and we'll get the show rolling.
These 11 scientists linked to sensitive programs in the U.S. have suddenly disappeared. Congress is now opening an investigation.
Well, I hope it's random. Pretty serious stuff. Hopefully, I don't know, coincidence, if you whatever you want to call it. But some of them were very important people, and we're going to look at it over the next.
On April 16, 2026, President Trump brought up a case that had been mostly circulating online, especially on Reddit, where it was often linked to conspiracy theories. A few days later, on April 20th, Congress announced it had referred the matter to several federal agencies, including the FBI and the National Security Agency. It is very unlikely this is a coincidence. Congress is very concerned and is making this a top priority from now on because we see it as a national security issue. James Comer, a Republican lawmaker and chair of the House Oversight Committee, said he initially thought it was some kind of crazy conspiracy theory before concluding that something much more sinister might be going on. NASA, which is connected to 3 of the cases, said it is cooperating with the appropriate agencies regarding the missing scientists, while adding that so far, nothing indicates a threat to national security. Since 2022, 11 American scientists working on sensitive programs, including nuclear and space research, have died or gone missing under circumstances described as unusual by several media outlets. Here's what is known about those 11 cases. Amy Eskridge, 34.
There's multiple parties looking at each other like, didn't we tell this bitch 3 years ago that we kill people for this? Is she not listening? What is she doing? She's still doing it? What? We told her we were going to kill her 3 years ago.
Amy died on June 11, 2022 in Alabama. A researcher in experimental propulsion, she had co-founded a research institute and claimed to be exploring concepts like anti-gravity. Her death was ruled a suicide by gunshot. Before her death, she reported harassments, threats, and possible sabotage attempts. Michael David Hicks, 59. A physicist at a NASA propulsion lab specializing in comets and asteroids, he died on July 30th, 2023. The cause of death was not made public. Frank Maywald, 61, a researcher at the same NASA lab, he died on July 4th, 2024 in Los Angeles with no official explanation. Anthony Chavez, 78, a former employee at Los Alamos National Laboratory, one of the most sensitive research centers in the U.S., he disappeared on May 4th, 2025 after leaving his home on foot. Despite extensive searches, he has still not been found. Monaco Jacinta Reza, 60, an aerospace engineer at the same NASA lab, she disappeared on June 22, 2025, while hiking in California. She was walking with someone, but stepped about 30 feet away and was never seen again. Melissa Casays, 53. 4 days later, on June 26, 2025, this administrative assistant at Los Alamos disappeared without a trace. She was last seen near a highway without her phone or personal belongings. Stephen Garcia, 48. On August 28, 2025, he disappeared after leaving his home in Albuquerque. He worked at a site focused on nuclear weapons components. Police said at the time he was armed and could be a danger to himself, but he has not been found. Jason Thomas, 45, a deputy director in chemical biology, he went missing on December 12, 2025. His body was found 3 months later on March 17, 2026, in a lake in Massachusetts. His cause of death has not been officially determined. Nuno Laureano, 48, a nuclear physicist at MIT, he died from a gunshot wound on December 2025. Early findings suggest he was shot at home after a dispute with another scientist. Carl Grillmeyer, 67. An astrophysicist, he was shot and killed outside his home on February 16, 2026. While no clear motive was established, a suspect was arrested the same day for car theft and later linked to the killing. The two men did not know each other, but the suspect had previously been arrested for entering Grillmeyer's property with a rifle. William Neal McCaslin, 68. On February 26, 2026, the retired Air Force general disappeared in New Mexico. Some personal items were found at his home, but others, including his revolver, are missing. His name had previously come up in discussions about UFOs after WikiLeaks documents mentioned his role in sensitive programs. His disappearance, which came days after Trump announced the declassification of UFO-related documents, remains unexplained. According to Comer, several of these individuals were at the forefront, especially in nuclear research. We know many countries around the world would like access to our expertise and capabilities. However, some families question whether the cases are connected. Amy Eskridge's father said her death was not linked, adding, "People need to understand that scientists die too." McCaslin's family also rejects any connection. His wife said, "He retired 13 years ago. It seems unlikely he was kidnapped for secrets that are old." Hicks's daughter said there is no logical reason to connect her father to any federal investigation. Only a friend of Anthony Chavez welcomed the renewed attention, saying, "It's about time." In most cases, the causes of death or the circumstances of disappearances remain unclear. In others, police investigations have provided partial explanations, as with Laureano and Grillmeyer. James Walkinshaw, a Democratic lawmaker on the same committee, said an investigation is justified, but added he is not convinced there is a coordinated motive behind the cases. For now, no official evidence confirms a link between all of the incidents, and the investigation is just beginning. Caroline Levitt said on X that everything will be done to identify any possible similarities.
Can't hear you.
Initial thoughts. My bad. I'm playing around with this new button on my soundboard, so I got confused.
There's two sides of this. There are quite a few of the deaths that I can I could probably, just based on what I've heard, say that they're probably not related, because there were, like, one of them was killed in a dispute with another scientist. There was another person that committed suicide. There was another one that had more of a health event. But the ones, to me, that I find the most intriguing, that I would be very curious about, are the ones who left home without personal belongings that were important to them and just disappeared. They were last seen walking off, going somewhere, and were never seen again. There was one particular person that left without, I think it was like medication, or, oh no, he, and the one that was the Air Force Major General, he left his house without his phone, his prescription glasses, or any wearable devices, and disappeared. And there was another, they showed her picture, the one with the short hair. She disappeared while hiking. There was quite a number of them that disappeared just walking they left their house and were never seen from again. There was another one that caught my attention. It was another scientist last seen walking near a highway in New Mexico, and she left all her belongings at home, and her phone had been factory reset. I thought that was also really weird. I think the other thing too is how it seems like a lot of them are clustered in similar areas, like New Mexico, California, stuff like that. And then there was another one that died like days, I think, before having to do a briefing in front of Congress on the stuff that they had studied, UFO stuff. So yeah, they're like, it's hard to say that there's definitively a connection between all of them, because unfortunately, with how many people there are alive in this world, statistically, it's not that unlikely that 10 people of similar backgrounds could all die in strange ways. Like, people go missing hiking all the time. And also people of their age. A lot of these individuals were in their 60s, 70s. It's not uncommon for like health events, and if you're going hiking in a hot area, we had record hot spring, and if you're going hiking in New Mexico, heat can bring on heart attacks and other issues. So it's not completely unlikely that they could have died from like a health event as well. But it's still really interesting that it just happens to be a whole bunch of physicists and people linked to this UFO declassification stuff, which I personally don't believe exactly in like alien people. But at the same time, I've always believed that it was a cover-up for something else. So if they were involved in something like that and they were about to declassify it because of the time frame, I could see certain people wanting that to stay silent. But yeah, initial thoughts.
Rob, Max, don't matter which one.
I'll ride out. Unless you there. Wait till you get in a good place. I know how that driving be. I think about first of all, I'm a conspiracy theorist down to the black hole, automatic. I think about Huey P. Newton and Stokely Carmichael.
I would say I don't know if I can be heard, but I would say that
When you come back, I'll be quiet. Stokely Carmichael said that when you find out the truth in this country and you put it out, two things he said. He called it revolutionary suicide. He said, because when you find out the truth and it goes against what the establishment is trying to push, you become outcasted. You become pretty much castrated from society and away from the media to your own community, because you are going against what the establishment is trying to push. And I'm thinking that was just the people of, I say European descent, because a couple of the Black Lives Matters activists went missing. One person was found in the trunk. Two other young people was found dead. And then I'm thinking about John F. Kennedy, rest in peace, who was really trying to push the envelope and was killed right there on the spot. and then also, before I forget, in Buffalo, it appears that the guy who went when he killed the 10 people, I think it was a Dollar General in Buffalo, New York. One of those guys had the engine. I think he developed the engine that could be ran off water. And then there was also a black lady in there that was very, she was one of the most solid activists in the country. So I don't think it's a color. I don't, like, I don't think it's nothing new. And I know that again, when you rock the boat, or when you get ready to rock the boat, then a lot of times you gotta walk the plank. And again, this is those activists. It appears to me that those scientists were about to expose something that they did not want to let out, and all of a sudden, you gotta go, and it's unfortunate.
Yeah, I'm with both of y'all on it, but I do appreciate what Sydney said because what I hate or I have a big dislike for is automatically coming to a conclusion on something without real definitive proof behind it. Like with some of these stories that we see on media, we probably won't ever get the answers to them, and you might have to just rest with that. But I don't know, anything that got something to do with them uncovering or revealing certain things, I always feel like they will do whatever they can to keep a lid on it, unless it's given the green light or they're given a stamp of approval to open their mouth. But the second that you decide that you want to say something that's going to make people pay attention and look at them sideways, then you have the oh, we gotta do something about this thing. From what I watched, there a lot of them were up there in age, so it wouldn't be hard to say, all right, well, maybe they weren't the healthiest. I mean, they were kind of pushing the threshold on their lifespan because most of us don't get to see past the age of 67. Some of us, if you even get to that point. So I don't know. I'm on the fence with that. I do think it's interesting that last year or so I'm seeing more and more stories about men and women like them disappearing and vanishing, especially how it always ends up to seem to be connected to similar groups of people, NASA being one of them. So first and foremost, my thoughts and prayers go out to the families because I mean some of these cases are older, but that doesn't change the fact that they lost a loved one, you know. And I guess that's just really my initial take on all of it, for real, for real.
We at a place where ignorance is bliss, and I got people all the time. They say, "Yo, you can't go to war. You can't do this and that," because they could just put some in the water, or they could just put some in the air, and you're done. And it's unfortunate. And I think about the literacy rates, how they're declining and declining because at the end of the day, you got AI to talk for you. You can tell your phone what you want it to say. You can have it write you a letter. You don't have to read no more. You don't have to think for yourself. No, and This is a point where, again, everything is an oxymoron, because before, you had presidents, whether they was right or wrong, at the end of the day, they wasn't felons. But they was wrong because the things that they was doing, and some got impeached or whatever, whichever way you call it. But at this point right now, we at a place where knowledge is the last thing people want. They banning books. Like before, they ain't banning books. They're banning diversity. They're banning equity. They're banning inclusion. They're banning knowledge. They're banning facts. The person who coined fake news is going ham right now with it. You know what I'm saying? So with this right there, and if you see, there's been assassination. It appears that there are multiple assassination attempts at the White House. So when you're looking at that, you have people to where it's hard to rock the boat, because to rock the boat is to alienate yourself and to put your family in danger. And when you do that, in a lot of cases, you're on your own. So it's, you just hope that their family's okay. We know they probably not. We definitely pray for the families. We hope that whatever truth that they was pushing comes to light, because they said already back in the days, whatever's dirty is gonna come out clean in the wash, or whatever. I forgot the way they say it, but it's gonna come out, because at the end of the day, for the betterment of the people, you got to get to the bottom of a lot of stuff and make sure that this stuff come out so that the next generation could have it better than we do.
This also kind of makes me think of I think it was just from a discussion that I heard about like why conspiracy theories are so prevalent, especially now with the advent of the internet. And back when we relied on newspapers, magazines, stuff like that, it was harder for people to have all information available to them, and it's much easier to create patterns out of huge sets of data than it is for smaller bits of data. And if you're only getting information from your local community, with exception to like really big events that make the news, it's going to be harder for you to be like, oh yeah, all of these are connected. But now that we're on the internet, you have access to anyone's obituary, anybody that's died, anyone that's disappeared, anybody that gets hurt, you have access to basically any information that is publicly available, and also information that is made up that people have made available as well. So it's a lot easier for you to draw connections between things that are meaningless, really, than it was in the past. And so there could also be an element of that where there's just a bunch of people that are dying in ways that ordinarily in ordinary life, like, it happens. Like, the science community sees suicides a lot, particularly scientists that are involved with like the government, Earth, stuff like that. They have an awareness of what's going on. They're highly intelligent people typically are more likely to commit suicide because they have a more acute awareness of things around them and feel these things significantly because they're exposed to this in their careers. So it's not uncommon for scientists to commit suicide. And with some of the ones that disappeared, they left their phone behind, they left their belongings behind. Part of me wonders if it could have been something like that as well, where it was intentional. There was one that was found with a gunshot wound in his home. It made me wonder if that one could have potentially been a suicide. So it's a lot easier for us to see all these stories right next to each other and be like, oh yeah, they're connected. They're definitely connected. even if they're not. It's just that we're exposed to it more often. We hear about it more often. And it's our minds, the way our minds work, they like to make connections. Our brain likes to make things make sense. And if it sees any similarities between events, it's automatically going to be like, oh yeah, there, I see it, puzzle pieces, even if it's not. It's just how our brain works, how our brain processes things. It's a survival mechanism back when we had to recognize that's a predator, that's food. Our brains needed to be able to put together patterns and understand their environment in a way that would keep them safe. And that is just still active. It's just we don't have to focus on like going to the grocery store and differentiating between what we can eat and what we can't eat. Now we're doing it to our external world because that's what we're most stressed about, most especially with everything going on in the government now. There's probably a lot of people that are just, there's so much corruption out there. I think we're now just looking for it in every angle, every department of the government. We just kind of expect that somebody somewhere is taking advantage of it somehow. And yeah, so I think it's kind of a combination of our own psychology and the state of this country right now, the distrust that we have in the government. I mean, we all see, like you brought it up earlier, the assassination of JFK. Like, there to this day persists the theory that he was killed by our own government, and that it was all made up. There's all sorts of conspiracy theories out there of how things are orchestrated by the government. So it would be natural for our brains to go there because that's what we're exposed to. And frankly, it's kind of intriguing, but also like exciting in a way. Like, conspiracy theories are exciting to think about because it's like a what if exploration type of thought process where you're like, well, maybe that could happen. It makes life more interesting because, you know, people just going on a hike and getting hurt and passing away because they're older or something like that. That's not as exciting compared to scientists are disappearing. Somebody's killing them off. Like, so yeah, I think there are some that really do make me question, but I also understand the psychology behind conspiracies and what make them so potent in our minds. And so I'm kind of on the fence. I'm like, I can really see how this could be conspiracy theory, but I also understand that it's probably unlikely. And there doesn't seem to be a clear enough like connection. They're not all disappeared. They're not all like every single one of them had their phone wiped. Every single one of them disappeared in the same area. They all worked in the same department. That would catch my interest and would make me really question things. But they're from, like, a couple of them have connections, but most of them are from different regions. They had different things happen to them. They disappeared in different ways. So I would be more inclined to think that it's just a coincidence. But it is still, I think it is still thought-provoking in the sense that if a lot of these are like suicides, why are they doing this? Like, what's happening right now that is enticing high-profile, highly intelligent people to want to escape the earth? Like, there must be something underlying that's motivating this type of behavior, and for the health of everyone, it would be important to understand that.
Yeah, I always come from a spiritual lens because I noticed something, right? I thought of this while listening to everybody when I wasn't in and out of here. Notice how when the people are older, they can just be discarded as they had something, or they killed themselves, or, you know, health related is easy to associate with an older person. And leaves room for people to just be like, "Oh, that's unfortunate." Now the issue is how many people is that happening to at once, especially from this whole high profile place. With younger people, you had to go a little deeper to explain their disappearances. And nowadays, because of COVID-19, you could say, "Oh, they got that." You can make something up, or they have mental breakdowns because mental illness is a thing. So it's easy to abuse that idea of that way of thinking. The problem now is that I think of the book of Luke when the demons possessed the man and he had many demons in him, and they're asking Jesus, "Don't send us to the place before our time. Can we go to that herd of pigs?" And they killed them all off. They just rolled them off a cliff, which says that a lot of demonic influences could have that factor. It could be legit suicides, or it could be the fact that they are behind those who are making sure people disappear because they don't want their plans to be exposed because they're working for the enemy. He is the devil, the Satan, and his minions are like the prince of this world because God and Jesus is not of the world. They're outside of the world. So anything worldly is associated with demonic power, which is not as powerful as God, never will be, but we can allow it to influence us. So they have this way of turning us into puppets. And, the president is a good example of like, I think if I'm going to be legit, I think he's being used to expose the corruptions further, even if he's part of the corruption. He's exposing the other layers. So that way you can see that no one's really your friend in the government as far as that goes. They're not the ones you need to depend on. Because the fact that he's in it, the fact that the Democrats are their methods are failing very heavily, and now it's becoming more obvious that this is a spiritual warfare because of the way things are happening. I don't care what anyone thinks, as far as like if they want to dismiss that or not. You can't be spiritual and then deny that something's not happening there. I know that Rob, you and I had this back and forth. Why does God allow things? A minute, look, a year, a day to Him is 1,000 years to us. So we're a dot, we're a second compared in the lifespan and the way that things are seen compared to what in the way that He's probably seeing things, because He's outside of time. Granted, like there's going to be a point where like any movie, the villain has that milestone in the film right before the rescue from the good side. We're getting towards that part where he's getting his climax before, in this case, Jesus comes back and takes his bride, meaning his people, his followers, his church. There's going to be a day where a physical church will not exist. So you're seeing Satan and his minions be very aggressive because they know that their time is done and it's approaching fast. Because if you look at history, if you look at the, the real, that should tell you that something is up, you know. So that's something to look at when it comes to conspiracy theories. They start off like, okay, interesting, but now they become more potent because a lot of things become more and more exposed. Like 9/11 will always have conspiracies that you're saying. Some people are arguing that there wasn't even airplanes. They're saying some said now thermite was used for the towers, and then others can argue the fact that it's as simple as the planes wiped out all the fireproof. Metal is very sensitive to heat. they become noodle spaghetti, and because they didn't have a lot of like vertical support beams because they wanted to make more office space, you're leaving more room for pancake labs, and because they look like a bunch of boxes. So there are conspiracy theories, like Cindy said, that they can be argued. There's something that could actually be more. People disappearing the way they are, is very evident that y'all need to really look at your spiritual life and just looking in the right directions. Talk to Jesus if you haven't, because it's gonna be more and more proven that he's the only way to heaven, and that heaven, not this earth, is going to be your safe haven.
I see it being a combination of everything that was said up here. If you really want to dig deep into these type of things, then that will require a bit of time and energy, because I don't know who none of these folks are.
Yeah.
But if I was really trying to figure out if there was, like City said, if there were any similarities, or if any of this was tied to what happened over here, then I would have to literally go into records and start to peel back layers of different chapters of their life. And shout out to the people who actually do it, like real historians. That takes a lot of time. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to hold you, but I do find it fascinating. The idea that there are others that are in cahoots to suppress information from the people in order to maintain some sense of control to whatever degree it may be, even at the extent of making people and things vanish, always intrigued me. Always. I just never dived that far into it, but scientists to me are just as important, if not as important, as the very people who plant these cornfields and harvest these plants and all these other things. So I don't know. It's hard not to look at that and wonder what if. Now some people probably don't care, but if you look at the grand scheme of things, are the truth tellers getting eliminated so that they can keep the people that hold the secrets around longer?
Sounds like it. I mean, if you look at history, everyone that told the truth eventually died in a very random way, depending on who they were.
And that's facts. You look at Martin Luther King Jr., how he was, I'm gonna say, quote unquote, okay until he went for economic equality. You look at you look at Malcolm X. He was okay until he started promoting diversity. Nobody talks about the fact that the new organization that he started before he was murdered was all inclusive. After he did his pilgrimage and did his Hajj and everything, um, you look at all of the people that went against the president, even his closest confidants right now, are rebelling against him. And then I just looked right now. I looked at 5 different scientists' names, and for their families, I don't want to say their names out of respect. And then I also don't want to talk, like I said, blindly about things I don't know. But I just looked up 5 scientists' names who appeared to be exposing the truth, and all of a sudden, gone from this earth. You look at Dr. Sebi, who supposedly found the cure uh, for a lot of diseases. All of a sudden, he was trying to do some things, and all of a sudden he was gone. You look at Bob Marley, died very young. Was definitely out there. He was definitely very impactful on the community to this day, able to begin change. John Lennon. There's so many people, not just from a scientific standpoint. You look at Michael Jackson, who owned Sony and who was about to do a tour and get out of a $500 million debt, to where he not only owned a record label, he also owned a lot of people's masters. You look at Prince, who got his rights, changed his name, gained full independence, who wrote, produced everything. You know, it's off topic, but all of a sudden he was unalive. And then you look at a lot of people who were going to prominence to a certain extent. You look at Bill Cosby, who was trying to own a network. And if you can own the whole network, you can control a lot of programming, you know, towards the people you want to affect. And all of a sudden, and then now there's this thing too, where the rappers, once they get to a certain point, they get big money, they get a deal. Now all of a sudden they crash out. All of a sudden, the actors, the actresses, they get to a point, they finally hit pay dirt. They finally hit they breakthrough. And then at the same time they hit their breakthrough, now it's a whole scandal once they hit those. You know what I mean? So I would think that it's worse for the scientists, because nobody really know them. Nobody's really checking for them. But I tell my students all the time, if you want to get money, you got to be able to answer the questions that nobody can answer. And you look at these scientists who are working on this stuff every day, and we watch the movies every day about, you know, which scientists are you, how far are you willing to go? Are you willing to? And they always have this moral question of where, okay, I found this information out. Do I want to keep it going? And then now all of a sudden they're running with their information and they're trying to erase it off the data drive, this and that. And they either end up dead or they end up like the last person alive in the movie. And I don't think that's too much different from what's going on right now, because this is definitely a quest to uphold the status quo, and more than anything, go back to the old status quo, to where it's either get down or lay down. And it's hard because, you know, you got all of these outlets now where people can get their truth out, right? But at the same time, a lot of people don't have the representation. So if they don't have the representation, if they don't have the resources, they could just, you know, turn up gone, or they could. It's just like you can make anybody a star right now, right? If a label gets behind you and you have a talent, or you have something to offer, or whatever, or if you did something strange, you could be put to the forefront, to where you have these scientists right now to where, okay, I have this information, but I don't have the backing, and now all of a sudden I'm gone, because at the end of the day, you could be saving lives, and it just doesn't feel like we're in a state right now to where they want to save lives. It's a state to where, you know what, we want to shore up the resources. We don't want to share We want to make sure that anything that's going against what we're trying to do is out of there, and it's going crazy every day. Because even when you look at the Iran thing, whatever that's going on, every day the people in the presidency is saying it's about to be over, da 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 da. But then you look and it's not. And then you look at the same time, Africa has never stopped being bombed. And then you look at every time there was a real problem that was supposed to be resolved, somebody had to die for it to be solved. When you look at the Civil War, when you look at the American Revolution, when you look at the World War I, World War II, somebody wanted to be right. They felt they was right. And to a certain extent, they had to be checked. And then a lot of times, when you look at even before that, when you look at what was going on in Europe, wrong or right, they still went and started the wars, and they didn't stop fighting and killing until they got their way.
All I know is I don't think everything is a conspiracy anymore. I used to watch these videos and I didn't really understand editing and cropping out and photoshopping at that time. When they would say Usher was doing this and that with Diddy and Will Smith, I thought they were just putting clips together and making a mockery of it. And that was 10, 15, 20. It was a good grip ago. I didn't take it serious until now. It was like, all right. The same thing that they were saying then, saying now. And like Max had said, a lot of this is definitely spiritual.
Bro, even not to cut you off, even to a certain extent, from what I've researched, they said that the day Nipsey died, he had set up a gang truce with the gangs and the LAPD. Also, he had set up an independent company to where he did not reimburse everybody who thought that they should get a kickback off of what they were doing because they felt like that they were very original. And he was murdered the day before. This, to a certain extent, after a while, becomes no coincidence. And unfortunately, here we feel like, well, it is what it is. To where we at a point to where you have to choose between uprooting your family or going for what's right. And most of the time, going for what's right is not going to end well for you. And a lot of times, again, you become ostracized for trying to do what's right. Even if, and it's crazy too, because you could have been wrong and doing wrong for a while, but the minute you decide to change and help the people, all of a sudden, that's your ending. And that's scary.
That's something that they found within communities during the German Nazi occupation of Germany, where a lot of people were so afraid of getting ostracized from their communities that they stayed silent about everything that was happening, because the thought, like, especially during that time, your reputation was all you had. And some people were so afraid of being seen certain ways that would affect their business, their lives, their whatever, their families, that they stayed silent and let things happen to people that should have never ever happened to people. People forget how potent ostracization is to people. I mean, even like the Salem witch trials, like people were acting specific ways to avoid being labeled as witches, and they would go along with the accusations of other people just to divert eyes away from themselves and as a way to protect themselves. We forget how strong the desire to be included can be, and how much it can affect your thinking towards other people. And there's so much research already showing that there's a lot of people out there that will choose to bully or even participate in the injury or death of a person just to avoid being in the out crowd. So yeah, that's also another aspect, is a lot of people are willing to follow the grain just because it's way more comfortable than going against what everyone else is saying. It's rare for somebody to voluntarily split off from the majority of the population. That's why even today, like, you see it in movies, you see it in TV shows. There's always that one weird person that's behind, like, they're at home all the time, they have no friends, but they're the ones that seem to know it all. Like, they have all the information while everyone else is like, weirdo, you don't know what you're talking about. And when it finally comes out that they know what they're talking about, everyone else is like, what? How did they know instead of everyone else? Because everyone else sheep herded. They ignored that that outside person because they didn't want to be labeled as an outsider and as the weirdo and as the freak or whatever words that they want to use to describe these people. So social psychology has a huge influence on the behavior and response to both traumatic situations and also conspiracy type situations as well.
Shout out Chef. Chef Nutty V. The next up, Hall of Famer as far as hip hop, R&B, jazz, blues. Stand behind that guy, rock and roll. He said, "Is it cowardice when you're afraid to die for what you believe in?" I think it's got to a point to where even I learned the hard way to where uh, you have to decide whether you want to still be here to feed your family, and especially if it's a war that you cannot win. I don't think it's necessarily cowardice. I also I, I also think to a certain extent to where they said, I read in my Quran where it said if you kill one person, you kill the whole of humanity. So I think a lot of times too, to where that a lot of people know that if they do the things like as being done to other people, then they will become just like those people. Like if you go out, start killing people. If you become a judge, then guess what? You become no different from them because at the end of the day, you're not supposed to kill people. But at the same time, to your question, I think that it becomes cowardice if you draw a line and you see a line that needs to be drawn and you don't go against it. After a while, we have to stand up. After a while, you have to stand up. You cannot let a person keep their foot on your neck. If you have these answers, because the one thing I'm with Max, I listen to Max all the time. He say about Jesus. When you think Jesus never preached in the temple. When he went in the temple, he turned over the tables, he kicked everybody out. He never asked for tithes. So he gave this information and this truth out for free. And for that, he was persecuted. So I think to a certain extent, depending on the situation, you're going to have to just go with your truth after a while, regardless of what. You're going to have to go with your truth, and you're gonna have to sacrifice it all in order to get your message out.
It depends on it depends on what hill you want to die on and why. Like it is said in the word that you to die is to gain for the Lord, basically. Like you have to be willing to be persecuted. You have to be willing to die for the sake of the will of God, for the sake of Jesus Christ, in order to even be in the kingdom of heaven, not the kingdom of God. Not necessarily that we're like, commit suicide. It just means that do not be ashamed of proclaiming Christ as your Lord and Savior and actually preaching the word at the risk of whatever the world wants to do to you, whether that means yelling at you, cursing at you, even hurting you, things like that. Everyone, um, it depends on the calling in life. A lot of people, if anything, the track record of people telling the truth and then they end up getting ostracized or killed gives more evidence to the story of Christ, even not just historically but biblically, because he literally had no record of sin. People could try to twist everything they want about flipping the tables. Just because you flip tables doesn't mean you committed sin. You can't be holy and still commit sin. That doesn't make sense. Like at least at the level that he was always portrayed in paintings and statues, like people who had halos, they were completely holy, meaning without any blemish to their mortal lives. So he was included in that, and you can't have that around your head, and according to the idea of those paintings, and commit sin. So flipping tables is not him committing sin. It's just him making a statement, making like he's mad, but he's not acting in rage. Being mad and having rage is different. Rage is like you practically are gonna like could kill someone in that state of mind. You'll do a lot more damage than just flipping tables of stuff that you're like, no, this isn't okay. People have done that in calm states, in a calmer mindset. So he was known for being very powerful, but without having to go to extremes for things. Um, so like him getting killed for even with no sin in life, not killed but dying, but they were attempting to kill him. We can't say they killed him because he was not. He died on his own accord. He didn't. They didn't get the satisfaction of killing him. But they were attempting to. Like that's how deep. That's how much of a threat he was to those who were like worldly leaders. What everyone said too. Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, um, even Fred Hampton. The guys who led Black Panther, who led just trying to, at the very least, bring some kind of peace to things or some alternate way of doing things that benefits everyone, not just one side. Um, they they get killed for exposing things, if nothing else. Um, you got to be willing to. I say this like if you look at if you protest and you're trying to do it peacefully, which I always encourage it. Do not wreck your community. I don't care what anyone says. It's not. I would say it's not worth doing that because by the time that's repaired, you may not even get to see the satisfaction of the good that comes from it. But be willing to die for the truth because that's what sometimes it ends up taking, unfortunately. Even people who are not people who followed, MLK and Malcolm X, a lot of people, that just marched around, did it at the risk of dying. It doesn't have that. People are not willing to do it to that same length. I don't think it's cowardice, but I think it's that you got to know, you got to pick and choose your battles. Like, there's a pastor named Philip Anthony Mitchell, and he had an interesting response when he was invited to the White House for this 250th anniversary, where they do Bible readings and things like that. And he's learned over the years to know when to say no to things. And even Jesus sometimes just got away from a city that he preached at or exposed truth to because it wasn't his time to be leaving this earth. The Holy Spirit will tell you, like, don't risk your life here. Don't risk social suicide here, which was what Philip Anthony Mitchell said. He said, going without thinking to the White House could be social suicide, and there's a lot to consider. Like, his assignment on earth is for his ministry, which is his current church and spreading the word of God. However, he does that outside of his church and going around the country. So it depends on what you are willing to know when to take a risk and to what level. So just use a lot of wisdom. Wisdom is different from knowledge. So go with wisdom.
I think it's the one thing when I started being an educator is that at the end of the day, we got to make sure. Well, that's what I say for myself. I can't speak for everybody, but I do my best to make sure that the kids have a better life than I did. And if it comes to a point to where people are oppressed, people are discriminated against for no reason, then I think it's the people's job to fight for what they believe in. And at the end of the day, we see throughout history that the people have always won in their cause. When things got ugly, the people were there to make sure things get righted. And eventually, the only problem that we have with that is that a lot of times we wait until we're uncomfortable to change things, and that could be a problem because other people are dying in the meantime. But I think once people are frustrated, then they begin to move in a direction to where change happens. And at this point right now, like you were saying last week, Max, a lot of that is happening because it kind of resembles the last of times, the revelations. But a lot of what's happening is that people are getting tired of being oppressed. People are getting tired of working to no gain. People are getting tired of having bills that are only going up. People getting tired of working all these hours and could barely take care of their family. They can't go nowhere. And all of these distractions are out there. But to draw it back to the scientists, they all of them appear to be trying to solve problems that will make life easier for the masses, not just one group of people. And with that, again, that's a sacrifice. Oftentimes you sacrifice your life because you're trying to help others in a state to where they say, okay, well, you know what you know. Why don't you come on our side? You shouldn't tell nothing. Come on, you could be over here right now, good, and this and that, with the knowledge you know. And it appears to me that those scientists who come up missing were saying, no, we're gonna help because they're thinking about their children, they're thinking about their legacy, they're thinking about people struggling. And I don't care who you are, and I don't care how you was raised. After a while, you learn enough to make the choices to where what side you want to be on. Do you want to be on the side that helps, or do you want to be on the side that keeps destroying? And once you get to that side, yeah, you become ostracized, and a lot of times even alienated from your own family. And it's dangerous. But when you look at these people being unalive, when you look at their charges, at the end of the day, to a certain extent, depending on the case, that's probably a charge that I need to pick up, because what are you hiding from us to where they had to be gone, especially when this is supposed to be the most benevolent place on earth.
Just to add to that, to, a few of them were, there was a man and one of the women that their spouses said they had been depressed and highly overwhelmed with what they were dealing with. One of the scientists in particular, she apparently was, according to her family, she was running away because she was so stressed out by her whole situation, everything that was happening with her science industry and her job and everything with the country, that she straight up just left because she was stressed out. And that's another thing. It's not just our country, but I hear that a lot in even other countries. In Japan and China, people, especially working people that have like white collar jobs, some of them get so stressed out by modern life that they basically go disappear to live in the forest. They aren't dead, they're just avoiding society because it's so overwhelming. And we see that with our own people. Like, people are quitting their jobs, leaving their houses, and trying to find a way to escape because we're so stressed. And I feel like that could also be another element of this, where if you're a scientist, you're probably fully aware of the effects on the body, like mental, you're hyper aware of effects on your mental health and how society is affecting you. And the way society is built is against everything natural to humans, and we feel it acutely. It's just people show it differently. Some people get depressed and isolate themselves. Some people hyperindulge, where they're drinking, they're smoking, using drugs, buying stuff, shopping. All those addictions are just ways for us to mask our discomfort and our unhappiness with the way our life is. And we're more socially isolated than ever. And even from myself, because of my topical interests, because of the areas that I focus on in terms of educating myself, I don't actually have a lot of friends because I don't connect with people in the same way that is meaningful to me. Most people around me are super into sports, super into like TV shows and social media and stuff like that. And I don't relate to that. And so it's very hard for me to actually make friends because like most of the stuff I want to talk about is kind of depressing, and I don't want to put that on people. Like, I don't want to be that person that's always trying to push people to talk about politics and science and the icebergs are melting and we're all going to die, because I know that can be really irritating, especially when you're getting it from the news. But it can make it extremely socially isolating because, like, especially with heavy topics like that, if you have no one to talk to, it can be extremely stressful. That's why this podcast is such a godsend, because I actually have people I can talk about topics that matter to me and that I feel like make a difference and I can help other people. But if you're a scientist that are delving into these really complex topics that have really existential impacts on society, I could see how they might feel the same way, where they don't have community in a way that we did 50 to 100 years ago. And when you're holding on to such heavy information and you don't have anywhere to put that, depression and suicide is a very natural response for the body, because your mind is basically looking for the ultimate escape. And if addiction's not doing it for you, if friendship isn't doing it for you, then the way out is where they tend to go. So I could also see that being a factor, because there were a number of these people that supposedly died by suicide. One of them drowned, one of them shot themselves, one of them disappeared. So it also is indicative of what's going on in the scientific community overall. Like, even with climate change scientists, I've been hearing about a rash of climate change scientists taking their lives because of everything happening with climate change and the lack of support from the rest of the industries. So yeah, that's another aspect too that to consider.
And real quick, look at, I know we gotta close. I know you put it close us out, make them push the button. The all of the scientists who have been fired from the World Health Organization. Look at the changes that have been made in all of the sciences dealing with COVID.
Government agencies.
Yeah, you got Ebola supposedly back. Now you got the hantavirus, and everybody who was going against this stuff, it seems to appear that they were fired from their positions. It just appears, whatever, right or wrong, woody-woo. But at the end of the day, you know, it appears that trying to answering those questions that the government wants answered, that they don't want answered, can get you disappeared.
I have nothing else to add here. I think I pretty much covered it all. For real. Max, if you got anything that you want to say before we close out, you more than welcome to. I do want to say shout out to Chef, Hollywood Chef, G14 Classified Chef, everybody who pulled up, Rob, Sid, yeah, I left it all on the floor. Max, you got it.
Nah, I got nothing else to say. Just seek Christ while you can. That's all I got for people who have it already. And I know I know there's probably people that are like, oh, just do it again. But I'm like, really think about things. Could it hurt to give Jesus a shot if nothing else is giving you peace? Be surprised. That's all I got.
Sid, you wanted to say something before we closed out?
Yeah. I just wanted to end just saying, regardless of what happened to these scientists and their families, I just pray for all of those families affected, the ones that lost their loved ones, the ones that lost beloved colleagues, and for the ones that are missing, I really hope that they're okay and that they're found, because some of them have unfortunately been confirmed to have been deceased. But there are some that are still missing and have not been found. So for their sake, I genuinely pray that they are found alive and are safe, and maybe something just happened. And yeah, so my heart goes out to all those families that lost beloved family members and all of their coworkers, because, you know, especially in the scientific community, it's its own family. So it can be very heartbreaking when experts are lost. So yeah, my heart just goes out to everyone affected by everything we were talking about today.
Yeah, I know what to do, man. We about to get up out of here. Do been solid before y'all head out. I see y'all tomorrow morning. Y'all take it easy. Have a blessed week.
Have a good night, y'all.
The flow insane, take my spot, so the range. Shoot my shot with perfect aim. 3rd degree, that perfect flame. Ain't no sleep, that's the game. Oh, so southern, that's the slang. When they see me, that's the main. Chasing checks and fly like planes. Big old stick, I bought a cane. Flick my wrist and bought the ring. I'm so boss, we're not the same. Paid the cost and kept the change. Now I'm walking Hall of Fame. And I reside in the cloud, grand wishes.